morning, my fellow treasure hunters and explorers. I've been really busy for the last couple of weeks, and so I haven't made a video for a while. And my daughter just got married here a few days ago. It's been a real busy and crazy time. Thanksgiving, and we just went to the funeral of my father-in-law not too long ago. That was a 3,500 mile trip up to Clark Fork, Idaho, and then over to Kimmer, Wyoming. So we've had a busy and eventful past couple of months. But anyway, this morning here I want to get back to doing what I am passionate about, and that's exploring and treasure hunting and getting out in nature, looking at the different evidences and things that were left from people in the past. Can you believe how fast the year's gone by? It just seems like yesterday it was 2022, and so we're into the month of the holidays, Christmas season, and so if you'd like to get a unique Christmas present for your friends, family, mother, father, sister, brother, your wife, kids, you can check out our merchandise. There's a link below in this video, in the link below, and it'll have a link to our merchandise, custom printed merchandise. I've got our black logo sweatshirt on. It's got the Treasures Exploration Research logo on the front, and then on the back it's got the treasure skull that also has the logo in the center of the hat. We also have a Facebook page. It's Treasures of the West, and mess up my fine hairdo here, but anyway, the Treasures of the West t-shirt has the skull logo on the front, and it's got the Treasures of the West graphic on the back. I'm going to put my hoodie back on because I like my hoodies, and it's a little cool here this morning in my office. Didn't turn the heater on until a few minutes ago. We got some of the products that we've got on our Teespring site are coffee mugs for your mom, daughter, wife, those coffee lovers. It says before coffee and after coffee. It's one of my wife's favorite mugs, and it's a big hit with everybody that sees it. If you like crazy camo, if you're like me, if you like camouflage, I've developed several patterns of camouflage that are entirely unique, and I've had them graphically printed onto sweatpants, onto leggings for women and children, and it's a pattern that I've used in hunting. I designed this specifically for my own bow hunting, but camo can be worn anywhere, and I think it's in vogue. So anyway, yeah, get your merchandise, help support this channel, and get a great unique gift for this holiday season. So how did Elon Musk get so wealthy? If anybody has researched the life of Elon Musk or followed his story over the years, he's a relatively young billionaire. And if you look into Elon's life, the one thing that you will discover that led to his wealth was that he read and researched and studied every book that he could get his hands on. He read entire libraries. He had a gift of a photographic memory, or the ability to recall most of the things that he read. And by reading and studying and doing research, he became not only a individual that knew and understood finance and business, but he also learned about the stars, the sky, and rocket science, among other things. He learned the automobile trade, how the assembly line worked. He put all these things together in every technology and company that he has bought, acquired, or created. And knowledge is wealth and power. And the wealthy know this. The government knows this. Why do the wealthy people and the government keep certain information and knowledge out of the public mainstream? It's because they are trying to secretly guard information and power in a small group, because knowledge is wealth and it is power. With knowledge, you will know how to be successful in business, how to start a business, how to run a business, how to create products, how to become an inventor. You will be able to see ahead, to see the things that society is going to need, things that society lacks, things that are rare, like minerals or technologies that are needed, and you can get ahead of the curve and create a business or technology to resolve whatever society and the world needs. Many of us are not blessed with the recall that Elon Musk has with a photographic memory, so we have to take advantage of other tools in technology. We need to keep notes. We need to keep a journal or a record of the things that we have read and are reading, and make a library so that we can reference back to those important books and things that prompt us or make a difference in our lives. We have a great tool with technology and a phone. We have computers. We have amazing libraries. We have more information at our fingertips today than at any time in history. We can learn to metalsmithing, we can learn carpentry work, we can learn electrical work, electrical circuits, anything that you can imagine. You can get online, you can go to the library, you can research, and you can learn how to do whatever it is that your heart's desire. So how does this relate to treasure hunting? How does that relate to finding things of value left by history? Well, the same means and method of research that you put into learning a business or learning a skill or a trade can be used in research of treasure hunting stories or of historical stories about outlaw robberies or train heists, newspaper articles about finds that may relate to other things, family histories, historical events, such as when the King of England lost his treasure in the Wash over in Europe. When the tide came in, somewhere over in that area of the Wash, there's an enormous value in King's treasure. I believe even the crown and all the things that were associated with that were lost when that carriage containing a lot of his wealth was washed away by the incoming tide. It's just one example of hundreds and thousands of stories, both historically and more modern times. All the friends and the groups of guys and people that I hang out with have one thing in common, and that is they are a wealth of knowledge because of their research. I could take my team of treasure hunters and researchers and stack them up against anybody anywhere, and I can guarantee they would outperform and they would find clues and things that nobody else has thought about. We have guys that can think outside the box. We have all kinds of technological skills, computer skills. We have champion researchers that have been doing historical research for many, many years and have dove deeply into alternative history, history that's been hidden, history that's been suppressed, history of civilizations. history of ancient technologies, history of the Native Americans and their dealings with the first Europeans. We research journals and archives and microfilm and microfiche, and every tool at our disposal that is relating to the things that we are looking at. So knowledge put to work, trial and error, applying what you learn from one particular research site or study to another, because if one treasure site is related to the same group of people, say the Spanish, the Jesuits, or a band of outlaws, there's a very good chance that some of the things that they used when they hid their loot, when they cached their treasure, when they left their valuables, they used that same method in another site, in another place. The KGC, the Jesse James group of outlaws. The KGC, they hid things all over the United States, or the east central United States all the way to the west coast, and probably down into Mexico, where they retreated after the Civil War. We have several sites that we're working on that seem to have corresponding details or things that relate to this group of individuals. Terry Carter, in his great videos, has talked about and researched the mystery glyphs, which it's assumed or thought that perhaps these are tied into the KGC or the Jesse James gang. It's been researched by Dan Lowe, who feels that the glyphs, the stone glyphs, the mystery glyphs, were a form of Ojibwa Sioux. That they're very similar in nature to the Ojibwa Sioux petroglyphs and pictographs. And Jesse James had a very good friend, or had some friends among the Sioux, who ran with him or who were his right-hand men in some of his activities. And so it's things like this that begin to crack the code, the treasure code, so to speak. I'll just tell you a quick example. I had a cache site that I've been working on for many years that is very intriguing to me. It ties into the first treasure hunting story, or the first treasure story that I heard as a young kid. And I followed the leads and researched that for over 40 years now. And I've found a lot of the evidences and a lot of the things that collaborate this story. I know that it happened. But where it comes to a particular cache site associated with this treasure story, we couldn't quite crack the code to figure out exactly where to look. We had a few suspected areas, but I was watching a video on an unrelated topic, and a very knowledgeable friend and fellow researcher that I have associated with a few times over the years was talking before a group of people, and he showed a map. It was an original Spanish map, and he told the key, or the directional key, that was on that map, and he said that that was 262.5 for whatever reason. So I had a little light bulb go off in my brain. All that information that I'd studied and researched over the years told me that there was something here that I needed to pay attention to. And so I started plugging those coordinates into different sites that I have researched over the years, and I soon came to the one, my original treasure hunting story that I learned as a kid and heard from an old timer. I plugged that azimuth, that directional thing, into a group of clues that we had on the Spanish cache site, and lo and behold, it put an X right over the spot, one of the spots that I had selected myself through my research and through observations on Google Earth and through being in the field, I had a confirmation that literally blew my mind. It was so mind-blowing at the time and huge that we put together a team and we went out there, we put the technology on the ground, and through other clues that we found, we determined that we had found this site. And it's things like this, the collaboration, the knowledge, and the research, when it comes together, it's an amazing thing. But it can only happen if we use the tools that we have at hand, if we are actually researching, if we are actually keeping track of information, creating our own maps, researching old maps, listening to other treasure hunters, gaining more information and knowledge. Knowledge and information is power. Create a team. This is another thing that top researchers, top treasure hunters, people that are successful in their field do. If you look at Elon Musk, he surrounds himself with the most brilliant minds. He recruits the best skills in technology and research and in development that he can find. And he brings these people in, he creates a team, he has meetings with them, he's involved 100% of every step, all the way down to the smallest details, and that is why he's been so successful. And that's the same thing with treasure hunting or anything else that we do in life. If you create a high performance team, that'll help you to share the technology, the experience, the research. It'll help you cut down on costs. It'll give you new ideas. It'll bring together different skill sets and different tools that different people have. You know, that one person that thinks outside the box, we talk about this a lot, but I don't know how many times in my life that thinking outside the box has resolved a mystery or given a solution that couldn't have been solved with traditional mindset, with a traditional mindset. So create a team, a high-performing team. Observation of all the skills that are out there in the field, particularly treasure hunting or things related to this field, exploring, discovering new things. Observation is key. Observation is the key to discovering new petroglyph panels, new homestead sites. To be able to observe and see and understand is the way that geologists find new veins of gold or silver. They look at and find new mineral outcroppings, and then they take the technology that is at their hands and they apply it to create discovery. Discovery is the key to finding new evidences and to furthering research, particularly in the field, but it also relates to in your research at home, in your office, online. You have to be able to observe things and see how they relate to other possible clues. Tools. Use every tool at your disposal. We have many tools. We have more tools today in treasure hunting and in every field than we've ever had before. There's a lot of exciting tools that are coming out. Many of them are very expensive. We haven't had access to all of them, but some of those tools are mapping, Google Earth, thermal imaging, metal detectors. There's so many different types of metal detectors and deep seekers out there today. Ground penetrating radar that tells us where there are voids or changes in the soil or identifies different anomalies are all great tools and technology that are relatively inexpensive when it comes to when you look at hobbies and how much money people spend on different hobbies, whether it's cars or motorcycles or horses or hunting or fishing or whatever it is that people have a passion in. Treasure hunting, it can be expensive, but if you have a group, a high-performing group, and each individual in that group brings different tools or technology to the table, then you can have a very successful outings, putting these different tools over your sites or your areas that you're researching and looking. I want to read a story. This is a story that I've read a long time ago. It's from Treasures on the Old Spanish Trail by my friend and fellow treasure hunter who's crossed over the Great Divide and gone to distant shores, and George A. Thompson. And over the years I've written letters to him and corresponded with him, and he's always been good to help, and I really enjoy reading his material. He's entertaining, he's a good writer, and I have found many good treasure hunting stories by researching his documents. And we have made some important and interesting discoveries through some of his beginning research and then taking it further. And so this is an example of how research and collaboration came together to make a discovery. Okay, so this starts on page 77, Lost Treasures on the Old Spanish Trail by George A. Thompson. And he's talking about the forts in the area around the Uinta Mountains in northern Utah. Far to the north in the Uinta Mountains, which separates Utah from Wyoming, other traders and trappers were cashing in on the lucrative trade with the Utes. During the early 1830s, Robideau, one of a large family of traders from St. Louis, built Fort Robideau on the Escalante Trail in 1776. It was built on the site of an earlier fort at the forks of the Uinta and White Rocks River, just south of the present-day Indian settlement of White Rocks. It was only one of 3 forts built in the northern Ute country at about the same time, the others being Fort Davy Crockett, some 50 miles northeast of Fort Robideau on the Green River, in Brown's Hole, and Fort Kit Carson, about 40 miles southeast of Fort Robideau, at the forks of the Green and Duchesne River. All 3 forts became trade centers for the American fur trappers and supply points for many of the old Spanish mines then being found in the Uinta Mountains. Under the Mexicans who worked many of the mines, slavery became equally as vicious as it had been under the Spanish. In 1842, old Joe Williams, a Methodist preacher turned fur trapper, described the sad lot of both Indians and Mexicans at Fort Robideau. "I am appalled at the wickedness of those trading here with their swearing, drinking, and debauchery of the Indians. They are a dirty, fat, and idle lot." But unsuspected by Robideau or the trappers and traders and miners, an Indian revolt equal in intensity to the great revolt of 1680 was being planned by the Utes, this time to drive both the Mexicans and Americans from the mountains for good and close the hated mines forever. Traders like Robideau were well aware that the Indians had places that they had obtained silver ore or gold, but they were unable to learn its sources, for the Indians had no desire to see more of the Spanish mines reopened. For years the Indians had been known to possess a secret mine of silver which surpassed in riches anything known to exist. They made rings, bracelets, and other ornaments out of pure silver, but when asked where the metal was located, they would only shrug their shoulders or grunt. But with ever more trappers and gold hunters coming into the mountains, a few of the old Spanish mines were being located, one of the richest being the Almina de Perdito Alma, the mine of the lost souls. Almina de Perdito Alma was found by the use of a Jesuit waybill, reportedly obtained from an old Mexican at Santa Fe by one of the trappers at Fort Robideau. He traded it to a Mexican for a pack of prime fur. The waybill stated in part, follow the Rio San Buenaverde, or the Green River, to El Sierra Blanca de las Lagunas, the Uinta Mountains. Cross the Rio and turn to the northeast following the second arroyo crossing, Ashley Creek, for 14 leagues to El Promonito de las Hundir Aguero, promontory of the sinkhole. There you will find a cueva, a cavern. Just beyond is Almina, or the mine. Mine of the Lost Souls was worked in the most primitive fashion. However, Indian laborers was plentiful. The Indians were virtual prisoners at the mine until they died or escaped. An American trained in mining described the methods used at the mine of the Uintas near Fort Robideau. Without machinery of any kind, using only fire, unslaked lime, or sometimes black powder to break the ore, Mexican miners removed thousands of tons of solid rock, and at one place for 200 feet into a shaft and another along a vein. It required countless thousands of loads of rock, all carried out on the backs of Indians. Even more trips were required to pack out the sump water in animal skins. Fiber or cowhide sacks were used to carry the ore, while pigskin bags served as water containers. Torches were made of grass and tallow pounded together in a tight bundle with fiber made from cedar bark. Mines in the Uintas required a never-ending supply of Indian labor, but times have changed greatly since the Spanish had worked them, for by the arrival of the Mexicans, most Utes had horses and many owned firearms that were taken from the Spanish killed in battle or obtained through trade. The mission priests at the scattered mining camps of the Uintas knew that the Indians were on the verge of rebellion and told them that when the Americans replaced the Mexicans, times would be better. But the Indians saw that without change they were doomed to annihilation and replied that if they were to die, they were determined to die on their own land and with their own beliefs. In September of 1844, in a rebellion as well planned as the one Pope had organized in 1680, the Utes at all the mines and missions of the Uinta Mountains rebelled, and in one bloody uprising they either killed or drove all the Mexican miners and American traders from the mountains. At the same time, others attacked and burned Fort Robideau, Kit Carson, and Davy Crockett. Everything was destroyed, from the simplest vistas to the largest mission, including the smallest mining prospect to the great ones like the Almina de Perdito Alma. Nearly everyone was killed or driven away, but by chance, Robideau was on a trading trip and escaped their fury. A legend has grown of the murdered miners at Almina de Perdito Alma. During the attack, all the Mexican miners were killed except for one old man and his granddaughter, who were out picking berries. They watched in horror as their friends' bodies were mutilated and thrown deep into the mine shaft. Because they were not given their last rites of the church, they were lost souls. Heavy bars of bullion and mining tools were also thrown into the shaft, while the few log and brush huts were burned. Unknown to the miners had hidden a great cache of silver bars under one of the cabins. Many years later, an old Mexican woman who had been a young girl picking berries was brought to nearby Vernal by her two sons to help them locate the old mine and the cache of silver. The old woman was nearly blind, but she recalled that the mine was located on one side of a high promontory of land, not far from a natural cave and close by a sinkhole on the river. She also remembered a natural stone bridge downstream from the mine. Her sons made many trips into the mountains, but soon the winter snows came and ended their search. So, if you follow the information in this article that was written by George A. Thompson, then you will come to a specific area above Vernal. And while there, me and my friend Tracy found what could be possibly the old mine.